Hey, my name is Michael.
And my name is Michele.
And we want to welcome you to the M&M show today. The title is Keeping That Spark
Alive.
Okay, so listen, our world is crazy. We live in a world full of hate. Everybody's hating each other. They're fighting each other. They're warring each other. There's every kind of negative thing out there telling you can't find a good man, can't find a good woman, blah, 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 blah. I'm here to tell you love is the great healer. Love is the great healer. We need love. And I do believe that I want to inspire those of you that are watching to become arguably a mighty master of your relationships instead of a mega disaster in your relatiships,
right?
Because you haven't really been healed by love. Love is the great healer. And if you want to keep the spark, I mean, we say a lot, words are a lot. God spoke the world into existence. I want to encourage you. You got to use your mouth to heal your spouse. You got to always use your mouth to heal your spouse. You don't want to say stuff that really hurts a relationship, that causes the wrong kind of sparks.
That's true.
Because your mouth, the Bible says your tongue can set a spark. You can say some stuff that it says the tongue is restless evil. You could set a whole thing on fire with the wrong kind of spark. Keep the spark alive. I'm not talking about arguing. That's what I'm saying. You got to use your mouth to heal your spouse.
Right.
And that's both ways. Like you've said stuff to me that, is not so good. I've said stuff to you, not so good.
Yeah, words are either going to build a relationship up or tear it down.
Exactly.
Communication is huge.
Right. So at the outset, before we even get into it all, I want to encourage you, again, to be a master of relationship. Use your mouth to heal your spouse. Use your mouth to really say nice things. And so we've come up with something that I'm kind of like, my job is I'm the coach and Michele is the fan. So I'm always coaching her to be excellent. And I'm always inspired when she makes me.
Oh yeah. As wives, I think it's men really, really, really thrive on us being your fans.
Exactly.
Encouraging them. Because I think it's so easy in relationships, especially married relationships, for women to become, and you never want to become this, is their mom, their mom, because where you are just criticizing them and they're never doing things well enough, or you're trying to tell them it's just easy to tear someone down in the relationship. I don't know why women do it more, but we can nag. We can nag. And I think the flip side of that is just to speak faith into our husbands, even if they're not being worthy of fanhood in the moment. I think just remembering long term that, people change, and what keeps your spark is encouragement.
Yeah. And I think for me, and I appreciate that, but for me, just being a great coach of my wife. When a coach is seeing a player do something in the game that isn't great, he doesn't give up on the player. I'm out of here. You don't understand what kind of coach I am. No, he just says, hey, he pulls them aside with love and tries to correct. So I think I've had to learn that the right way to really be a great encouragement to my wife, and be a great coach to coach her out of some bad plays, dare we say, in the relationship, and to coach us together to greatness. So anyway, I think it's really important. If I can influence you, please use your mouth to heal your spouse. But if there was a first thing I would really want to, outside of that right there, to keep the spark, the positive spark, is laughter and affection.
Yes,
laughter. You gotta laugh. Michele laughs at me.
Actually, that was on my top. I think the top thing I wanted in a boyfriend was
laughter,
or husband was sense of humor.
Laughter. You got it, bro. You got to get you some jokes, bro. You got to be like, honey, I didn't know angels flew this low. I didn't know they flew. And then as sisters, you got to be like, honey, you put this stud in Bible study. And then later on that night, you go, honey, we're going to be doing some speaking in tongues. Anyway, you got to laugh.
Yeah.
Ecclesiastes 3 verse 4 says a time to laugh. That's
True.
all the time.
It's got to be a time.
You got to laugh.
Seriously. The more time, the better.
The more time. And
I think too, I was just saying earlier to a sister that we can't take ourselves too seriously, because, when you take yourself so seriously, you get offended, and it takes you hours to resolve conflict. But if it's amazing how there can be a very, very tricky situation or a very stressful situation, but a word of humor or lightness
Yes.
can really diffuse
We do that a
potential
lot. We make
damage.
arguments and we turn it into a funny situation. Instead of like you just said, what she just said is profound. We take the sting out of it.
It's a
Sometimes
trap from Satan, actually, to fall deeply into these conflicts and to take it very personally. But if one person, at the very least, and ideally both of you, if one person can just navigate and just say, sweetie, I'm sorry, and laugh at it or bring a joke or, me, I can lose my keys a lot.
Yep.
I don't know. I can't think of a funny thing right now, but that's something that has really kept us going for 21 years.
Yeah, laughter is huge. Laughter and affection. Proverbs 17:22 says, cheerful heart is good medicine.
Yes.
A cheerful heart, not the mind, cheerful heart is good. But a crushed spirit dries up the bones and it'll dry up your relationship.
Totally.
That wife's spirit is crushed because she gets no affection. That husband's spirit is crushed because he gets no encouragement. Man, that'll dry up your relationship. And I want to persuade you. You gotta laugh. Okay. You gotta have fun because no one goes into a relationship going, man, I cannot wait for the time I get to do finances with this woman. I can't wait for the time where we get to argue over parenting. And man, I can't wait to spend my life going over bills and talking about rent increases. And, oh, this is amazing. Yes, you're the woman for me. You never do that. No one goes into a relationship like with those things, talking about the business of the relationship.
Right.
Now, the business of a relationship is true, but that's not, you can't make that the main thing. It can't be about the business of the relationship or you'll lose, because the business of the relationship is boring. And
some.
Yeah, well, okay. Here we are. See, this is a joke here. This is a joke. We're literally living out what we're talking about.
It's not that bad. It's actually not that bad.
She likes
I find that fun.
Yeah, she finds it inspiring right there. I'm like, okay, I'm going to laugh at the finances. We ain't got any money. Anyway, but you got to laugh. You seriously got to laugh. You got to show a lot of affection, whether it's physical touch or emotional connection.
Words of encouragement.
Yeah, words of encouragement. But I do think it is kind of comical if you stop and think about it. Like no one gets into a relationship for the glory of doing the finance. I know you find it fun, but no, that's not the beginning. The beginning is because you like being with each other. And like you said, you like laughing, you like each other's company, right? And there's
compatibility.
Yeah, there's that element of affection. So you land your spouse by having fun with them, by liking them. And that's where you got to stay. You got to keep liking them. You got to, in some ways, if you're a married person, you need to go, if you're a married sister, you need to be a girlfriend. And if you're a married brother, you need to be a boyfriend. Don't turn into a husband.
Right.
Don't, sis, stay a girlfriend.
Right.
You know how you were when you were a girlfriend. You were you remember that?
Yep. Putting on the makeup, doing your hair.
Doing the hair,
writing cards. Being grateful.
Right.
Not criticizing.
Right. Coming to church for Jesus, but looking pretty good. and coming to church for Jesus, but standing pretty tall and sharing good news about my new job. I mean, you got to remember that. And I think we can lose that sometimes. We stop laughing. We stop showing that affection. And then we lose the spark. And then we have the wrong kind of sparks. So we gotta do that. And then we don't forget that we forget that over the course of time, we change.
Yes.
We change.
Needs change.
Life changes.
Circumstances. Countries change. So your second thing you got to do to keep the spark is you're obligated to study your spouse. These beautiful creatures called women change, right? They change. I remember one time we talked and we were having a great talk and Kip was like, Michele, you're like a little doorknob. You change it. You're just changing here. You're changing there. You're just like, you go here. And I was like, and he goes, bro, you need to figure out your wife. That's your problem. You need to figure out. And I realized that he's got some truth there that I have become a lifelong student of Michele Williamson. And in many ways, you've kind of become a student of me as well. Yeah, you have to. I think men don't change so much emotionally as often. I think women can change it within a month. We have different sort of changes. One week we like salty
Mhm.
food, the next week we want sweet
Mhm.
food.
Mhm.
But yeah, absolutely. I think people change in terms of what their needs may be.
Yep.
And also people do grow. So areas that maybe were weaknesses become strengths.
Very well said.
So
And
that's a good thing.
yeah, and then there's learning curves. There's all kind of learning curves. There's intimacy learning curves where you got to learn that person and they got to learn you and what where you're at. Some people grow up in marriages or grow up in a house or household situations where being really intimate was dangerous. So they don't equate intimacy and safety. They see danger there, and you got to learn. There's so much trauma in this world.
Yeah.
Sometimes you got to learn that about a spouse. Other times maybe your spouse is like in my situation, mom wasn't around, dad wasn't around. And so all you think about is yourself
Very
and
independent.
independent. You got to learn to be interdependent and think about and be considerate
And communicate.
and then she's got to learn, she's got to learn me and learn that I have a learning curve. She's got a learning curve to learn me. And then she's got to learn me.
Right. Not only that, but even in the marriage, two people may not even know themselves and how they relate to what a marriage actually is. Once you're together, like the commitment that's involved in building a marriage is huge.
Yep.
And the work, the effort, the energy
Yep.
that's needed to create a marriage is huge. And sometimes, depending on the spiritual and the maturity of the person at that moment, they may not even have the understanding of their baggage.
They may not know who they are.
No. So it's really working and helping each other that's where books come in, mentorship helps.
You got to study. You're
People
obligated.
that have been married
You got to study your spouse.
a long time also can give you great input and advice.
Most of the sermons that I have given or talks that I've given, they've come out of some great thing I've been able to learn because of this beautiful woman sitting next to me. Good and bad. When we've had difficult times, it's forced me to learn. When we've had great times, it's forced me to learn. It's forced me even in relationships with other people where you go in and you start learning about them and you go, wow. And you see that some couples, they have a disconnect between joy and intimacy. It's like, oh, joy is this, but intimacy is that. And it's like, whoa, no. Can't joy and intimacy be one? No. In my home, joy was one thing and intimacy was a really bad thing because there was abuse. Whoa. And so you have to counsel someone. Hey, bro, you got to learn this about your spouse. You have to counsel the sister. Hey, you got to learn this about your husband. So the whole point is being a student of your spouse, obligated. Definitely. To keep the spark, you got to keep studying each other out. There's all kind of learning curves, parenting learning curves. Right, you got to learn. What does she think? These
different
are things. Different kids. You got to study your spouse and know them, so you can keep
aging, health issues, job situations, financial situations can also change a lot of the dynamics in a relationship.
This is huge. What you just said, because you hear people say this all the time. Oh, he's changed. Oh, she's changed. You're right. Right. We get to do that, right?
Well, hopefully for the better, though.
Yeah.
Maybe people are saying that because he's changed, like he doesn't love me anymore. Or,
yeah, that's true.
Well,
but even studying that, why doesn't he love you? And learning why is he saying these things? And why is she saying, I don't feel loved anymore? And really learning. I know I had to do that in our dynamic. At times I had to stop. But, before the spark was too sparky and learn why. Like, why, and then get to the bottom of that and then find good godly solutions so we can go to the next step. And then I think the other thing is to keep the spark, you need vision. The Bible says where there's no vision, the people perish. Vision for new ways to keep the spark. To say
being creative, you mean?
Yeah. I mean, you can go to one restaurant and you love it. And you go to one restaurant and you love it. And you go to the same restaurant and you love it. And you go to the same restaurant and then you hate it. And all of a sudden you hate it. And you're like, oh my goodness, I hate eating here. What happened? We started loving. Well, because it becomes, you plateau.
Repetitive, yeah.
Yeah. And it's probably a reason why there's like, Uber's got like millions of different restaurants. Variety.
Right. Yep. Keep the marriage, alive by doing different things, going different places, changing up the schedule.
Yep. We do all
dates.
fitness. We do modeling. I remember we did early on in the early days. Took some photo shots.
Oh, for together, just
Yeah,
we did. Yep.
Personal photo shots together. I
We do
know.
modeling, but yeah, I know what you mean.
Yeah,
We did some headshots.
We did some headshots. Traveling.
Yep. Doing art sessions,
Mhm.
doing bike rides, picnics,
But just come
walks,
Yep.
so many different things.
But so if you're watching this, let me keep it simple for you. Marriages die, relationships die for the same reason that everything dies: neglect.
There you go.
The issue is neglect. You neglect anything, it's
Stop watering a plant, it will die.
it'll die. And people, why? I wonder what happened. Somebody started neglecting somebody. Somewhere something got neglected. The finances got neglected. The intimacy got neglected physically. The intimacy got
Emotional
the emotional
neglect.
intimacy, an emotional neglect. And so, you can't have the convictions of a cactus. Okay, you don't want a cactus. Cactus sit out in the desert by itself. Now, a cactus, there's some aspects of a cactus that are awesome. Resilient.
Survives.
They can survive, in the heat right there, but they're lonely and they're pretty prickly. All right. So you don't want to have the convictions of a cactus, like your marriage can just survive right there. It's kind of cool because, you open a cactus, some people have been saved by the water in a cactus. But
Amen.
yeah, I'm just making the point that you gotta, we can't treat relationships like cactuses.
Yeah. So why do relationships die?
Neglect.
You said neglect, but then how do you revive that? And why do they neglect? I think a lot of times it's just hurts. I think it's unresolved hurt that causes people to pull their heart back, which turns into neglect. That would be my 2 cents. What would be yours? Why do people neglect? Is it just because they want to cheat or they want to?
No,
I get bored.
I think it's like most things. We take things for granted. Familiarity breeds contempt. We go, it's always going to be there. The car is always going to start. I don't have to take it in for a checkup. It's always going to drive. It's always this. It's so reliable. And sometimes a reliable marriage, a reliable spouse can really be someone who's susceptible to being taken for granted because they're so reliable. And I think we can get used to something being reliable. Just like our phones, they always work. Our computers, they always work. And all of a sudden, hey, whoa, you got viruses or whatever. Yeah. Were you checking daily? No, because it just works. I think familiarity.
That's a good one.
Just
taking for granted.
Taking each other for granted.
Not saying thank you, not being appreciative.
Mm-hmm.
So one day that lady, you hear about these things, these marriages. One day the lady just got up and left. Yeah. You're just like, what happened? Exactly. They looked like they had a great marriage.
Yeah. Neglect. Yeah. Someone was neglected. And I mean, sure, we could talk about the obvious, either it's like we said, physical or emotional. But when we neglect anything, we starve anything, we starve it to death. You starve your marriage of love. You starve your marriage of fun things. You gotta be fun. I learned something. You know how a relationship, what it takes for a boring relationship? Boring people. A lot of people, he's so boring. Wait, hold on. Wait a minute. If he's so boring, then are you so exciting? Right? If she's so boring, are you, you hear couples like complain, the spouse is so boring. What are you doing to keep the spark? Do you have vision for ways to keep the spark?
Right.
Can't be boring. You gotta figure out a way to
revive,
restore,
rejuvenate. Yeah.
Yeah. And then lastly, I think a way to keep the spark is exercise. Mm-hmm. Exercise, not only physically, but spiritually.
Yep. As you stay close to God, you'll stay close to each other because you're dealing with your heart. You're dealing with sin.
Well, a lot of people think exercise is just about vanity, but I'm writing this in my book. People don't realize that one of the greatest healers for trauma is physical exercise, because what it does is it rewires your brain to think accomplishment, achievement. I can do it. I'm not that scared little girl. I can push through. I can lift more weight than I was ever able to. Exercise does something to you psychologically on top of physically. It's also about consistent strain and improvement. There's so much that puts strain on our relationships, so much puts strain on our marriage, so much that puts strain. But fitness is training yourself to accept the strain and always continually be striving for good and great gains. And it's a great social thing. It's great for us physically, for your physical health. you're just able to do more at a later age. I mean, I see people that I've known for years, and I'm looking at them and I'm going, wow, just looks like they're in a tough spot right there. And my heart goes out, but I really think it's really helped us to be able to live long enough to evangelize the world, to be healthy enough to be able to travel about and get out there with the students and really.
Yeah, we talk about that in the CrossFit episode. A lot about the benefits of physical, but I think spiritual exercise, as I said,
huge.
is probably to me the most important, because you can be in great shape, and if you're not dealing with your heart in marriage and your sinful nature, it really hurts your marriage. You really become that cactus that's very prickly, and hurtful. Yeah,
and this is huge. This is huge. What my wife said, because for us, we've been doing this 21 years, and typically the couples that are starved and they've lost the spark, it isn't because they're out studying the Bible with several people and they're helping tons of people know God. You have the rare cases where that's actually a negative. That's all they do is help people and they don't help themselves. So that there is that. But I remember when the church fell apart in Portland and things went awry, we went running and we went sharing our faith. And we took a whole box of share cards and started sharing our faith. The church went from 300 to 75. Everyone left God. And we decided, no, we're going to exercise our faith in God. We're going to continue to believe.
Yeah. And I think this also being outward focused, I think when you're other focused, it helps your heart not, be selfish.
What'll help
self-consumed
people? Oh, I need to get with you to get. No, you need to be in a Bible study. You know what to keep your marriage? A light and darkness study. You find out what other husbands are doing out there. You come home and think your husband's amazing. You find out what the other women are doing. Oh man, it is so hard.
Or what's been done to them.
What's been
You're grateful for your husband. You're like, wow, at least my husband doesn't treat me that way, or I'm not a single mother.
We just had. I mean, I get stories as I get older, over and over and over, of former friends, former individuals that are in tough spots now because. The last point we've shared, exercise. They just were not exercising spiritually. They weren't exercising their faith. So if you take all the points, how do you keep the spark? Not the negative spark that starts a fire. How do you keep the spark? Take the L, laughter and affection. Take the O, you're obligated to study your spouse. Take the V, vision for new ways to keep the spark. Because the same old ways ain't gonna hurt. It ain't gonna help, rather. And then E, exercise, physical exercise and spiritual exercise. Take all four. And how do you keep that spark?
Love. Love never fails.
We love you, and to God be all the glory.